Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Fabrizio Romano here as always to keep you posted on the transfer market. Today guys, many updates as usual. The big story of Morgan Rogers. We are ready. We have to discuss about so many things, even on a weekend, even before a World Cup final, and we jump into it together. And we start with the story regarding Morgan Rogers, guys, because it's a big story of the day, an incredible story, a big hijack by Chelsea. I would describe it as a pre-hijack. Why? Because the situation of Morgan Rogers has been clear for some weeks now, since the end of May, beginning of June, when there have been several conversations. And so they started the deal for Morgan Rogers. Arsenal were in very advanced talks with the player. There were meetings between Arsenal and the player representatives, several meetings. The player was also involved in some direct meetings. So Arsenal were going all in terms of contract, and the personal terms were not a problem. Morgan Rogers was open to that. There was some tactical kind of doubt on player side, but never financial. The contract was always ready and almost agreed. Then the plan at Arsenal was, after signing Christos Tzolis to replace Leandro Trossard from next week, when the player returns from the World Cup, to meet Aston Villa and try get a deal done for Morgan Rogers. Let me tell you, Arsenal were never going to offer 117, 120, 130 million pounds. For Arsenal, the value, the realistic value of the player was around 90, 100 maximum million pounds, no more than this, but they wanted to start a conversation from next week. What happened in the last 24 hours is that Chelsea entered the deal in a very strong way. Chelsea had a direct meeting with Aston Villa. This direct meeting was very direct, very strong by Chelsea, because they wanted to close the deal immediately. Chelsea arrived with the idea to get the player, not to start a negotiation. And so why I say a pre-hijack? Because it's preparing what was going to happen with Arsenal. So officially Arsenal didn't bid, but Arsenal were going to bid. That's the situation. And Chelsea have been very aggressive, ready to pay 117 million pounds, a very big fee for Morgan Rogers, and then also to give the player a 6-year deal with an option for further season, higher number compared to what Arsenal wanted to offer, but also the intention to involve Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso was calling Morgan Rogers. Xabi Alonso was involved in the direct conversations with the player, and so Chelsea were very fast to close everything immediately and to get Morgan Rogers to the club. So the deal is done. We can say that everything is in place. The player will be in London next week, beginning of next week. From Monday, the process will start for medical test and contract signing, and so huge bomba. Chelsea sign Morgan Rogers. And let me mention also that the situation could now impact the wingers market and the strikers market in general in different ways, because there is going to be movement. There is going to be movement on several players, there is going to be movement, and there is going to be consequences on this. I told you last week, this week, in the recent days, Aston Villa are trying to work and get a new winger because the expectation is for Morgan Rogers to go. And that's what happened. They expected Arsenal to be the club, then Chelsea arrived and they showed the player in 24 hours. But it's also important to mention that Aston Villa are still looking for wingers. For example, I'm told that one of the point of conversations with Chelsea was also about Alejandro Garnacho, but at the moment the priority for Garnacho is to explore different possibilities. So at this moment, Aston Villa Garnacho is not something concrete, but was one of the point of discussions during the meeting. Garnacho has an offer from Roma in Italy, and Roma are going very big for him, so we have to understand what happens there. Then, talking about the wingers market, we have to see how Arsenal will react, wingers and strikers, because this depends on the opportunities. For example, just to give you some context, Arsenal over the last few days made some checks with the agents of Yan Diomande from Red Bull Leipzig to understand if there was still a chance to enter the deal. But don't forget it, Diomande has an agreement on personal terms with Paris Saint-Germain, and Paris Saint-Germain are in negotiations with Leipzig. But for example, Arsenal made some calls to understand the situation of Diomande, just to give you context of what happened over the recent days. Then, another thing, it's a separate story, but Arsenal keep a close eye to the situation of Julian Alvarez and Barcelona. It's very tense between Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, as you can see, as I'm telling you, and I've been telling you for weeks. Obviously, if Julian Alvarez can't go to Barcelona, because Atletico don't want to sell the player to Barcelona. Now, the Atletico are saying they don't want to sell the player in general. But in case there is a broken relationship between Julian and Atleti, and at some point they decide to sell the player in August, Arsenal could still be interested to the situation and could still keep a close eye to Julian Alvarez. So we have to be very attentive to Arsenal now, because losing Morgan Rogers is a big blow for Arsenal, is the reality. He's the player they wanted, he was the number one target, and so they were pushing and pushing to get the deal done. Now, big surprise, he goes to Chelsea, there will be consequences on the market. For Arsenal, it's for sure a big shock. They didn't expect this to happen. This is also the transfer window. 1 year ago, Arsenal had HIJACK when Tottenham were convinced to sign the player. Now, Chelsea signed Morgan Rogers, where Arsenal were convinced to sign the player. This is part of the game, part of the transfer window, especially when there are big players as part of the conversation. I also wanted to clarify a few more things. One is about Bradley Barcola. Many Arsenal fans asking me, now Arsenal are going all in for Barcola, now Arsenal are working on Barcola. Guys, my understanding on Barcola is that so far Arsenal have not made any checks. While they made some checks on Yan Diomande, for example, they didn't make any fresh check on Barcola over the recent days. So at the moment, the conversation Barcola Arsenal is still cold, I would say. Liverpool remain very attentive to the situation. Liverpool remain very keen on Barcola, so I stand by my information and I keep telling you that Barcola, Liverpool remains a concrete possibility depending on the fee they want to spend, because PSG would ask for very important money. At the same time, also important to say that Arsenal will need now to react on the market, and we have to see the consequences, we have to see what's going to happen. For sure, it's a big shock, for sure, it's a big surprise. He's a player that especially Mikel Arteta really wanted to bring to the club. Mikel Arteta was mentioning his name during the meetings even before the end of the season, around January, February, March, with all the internal meetings at Arsenal. The name of Morgan Rogers was mentioned, and he was a serious, concrete target for the Gunners. Chelsea had a feeling around May, June that was impossible to enter the deal. They already tried to understand if it was going to be possible, but the player was committed to Arsenal. Then it took a lot of time. Arsenal were not ready to spend what Aston Villa wanted. Week after week after week, Chelsea had the possibility to try enter, to get the opportunity to hijack this move, pre-hijack this move by anticipating Arsenal bid, and then to get it done. So a crazy move on the market, a crazy story. Get ready, because it's going to be even crazier in the next weeks. There are many movements around Europe, many things are happening, and so stay tuned here for all the latest. Let me know, guys, your opinion on all this story. Of course, Morgan Rogers, but also Barcola, Julian Alvarez, Yan Diomande, who has an agreement with PSG, waiting to see if the deal will be completed. So several things are going to happen. I wait for your opinion, guys, here in the comments. As always, remember to like this video, to turn on the notification bell, to subscribe to the channel, and see you soon here as always.